Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Hello. Happy Thursday to everyone. I'm Marla Goldberg, your host and creator of Guided Spirit Conversations. And I have to share with you that I am so excited about today's show. I have Raphael Weisman with me. Raphael has got a huge CV, and I'm going to read it to you now. And I'm sure there's even more that's even not in his bio, but he's so intriguing. He's got so much going on that I think you're going to just love him the way I do right now. So let me share with you. Raphael was born in South Africa. He lived in Jerusalem, London, Laguna Beach, California, Questa, New Mexico, and currently lives in Santa Fe. He is a retired luthier and harp-maker. He is a channel for the love and guidance of the angels and the beings of light. Raphael is a visionary and channel, an author, poet, editor, writer. He loves to dance, is an avid hiker, and a lover of trees in the nature kingdom. He's a musician and loves to sing and to jam on flute, harp, saxophone, and harmonica, hopefully not at the same time. And he is an advocate and supplier of Shungite for protection from EMFs. He's a trainer and facilitator of HeartThread, which is so phenomenal. We're going to talk about that, which releases old patterns and conditionings from the cell. He's a minister in the Open Catholic Church, and Raphael facilitates Medicine Water Wheel Ceremonies for the blessing of the waters, and he consults with his clients on how to build them. And that's for the wheel ceremonies. He has founded the nonprofit Healing the Scars, Inc., to provide healing from the effects of war, trauma, abuse, and violence. He is the author of The Path of the Spiritual Warrior by the New Earth Council, and is an editor as well as the author. And Raphael has done extensive research into the ancient mysteries and the interconnection between all the wisdom traditions. He channels the guides each alternate Tuesday evening in person and on Zoom. Welcome, Raphael. I mean, there is so much there. There's so much content. I think you're going to be a regular on my show just to get through it. How are you doing?
I'm amazing. Thank you. I'm
so
here in Burlington, Vermont with my family, and we finished a HeartThread training last weekend with some amazing people. So I'm doing well, trying to stay settled, stay stable, keep a good attitude around anything and everything.
Which is so important, because to be able to really grow and move forward in a joyful, flowing way, it's happy to keep yourself happy and joyful and grateful. Do you agree? Yeah. So you have such an interesting background. You started in South Africa. You're now here in the States. How did you begin your journey? Like, what was the catalyst?
Gosh, I don't know. I thought, I was, it's almost as if I was like a puppet on a string, being guided from one step to another by my guides, my angels, those beings that have always watched over me, so-called in hindsight. As a child, I think I was very sensitive, always felt like an outsider. I come from another planet. And I lived in South Africa under apartheid. I had a very strong, social conscience, shall we say. So it was either I was going to fight for freedom, or I'd probably end up in jail, or worse, or I had the option to go to live in Israel. As a Jew, I was able to do that, and I ended up doing that. I was conscripted into the Israeli army, By the time 3 years was up and a 6-day war, I decided I really wanted to go study. And I was accepted to go to the Hebrew University to start exploring my passions, which became music and literature. Actually, I was feeling like I never had a chance to really dig in to my background from my English roots, and so I made it a point to study some of the greatest literature. Shakespeare was an absolute passion for me, and then the transcendental poets also had it. So I was already, when I was a kid, I think 12 maybe, I joined the Rosicrucians. I threw a little ad in the magazine. I remember staring at a candle. So I was always drawn to the mystical, to the transcendental. And I discovered Shakespeare, had a tremendous background um, in soul, in heart, in relationships, the whole, what makes us human, and yet what makes us also superhuman. And I love the literature. I love words. It's also like music. And my second, I did musicology and philosophy. So I started, that was my foundation.
Well, and then both of I mean, you were a luthier and a harp maker. That alone, they're two unusual instruments that produce the most melodic, in my opinion, music. I mean, I learned about the harp, believe it or not, from Harpo Marx and
Yeah.
loved it, loved the harp. And just seeing, it's just such a beautiful instrument, not only to look at, but to watch people playing it.
Yes.
How did you get into that?
Well, at a certain point when I was studying at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem in English, there was a guy who decided to build himself a guitar out of a kit. And I was fascinated by the idea. And I really wanted to work with my hands, but I had no idea. And so I started to pursue, because I'd been introduced to early music, Monteverdi, the very first operas, and I loved the sound of the Baroque and Renaissance music. So I decided instead of going on to an MA and becoming an academic, I wanted to work with my hands and I wanted to make instruments. So I thought I was going to become a harpsichord maker.
Oh,
And because my wife had connections in London, and her family the father was a very well-renowned pediatrician, head of Hadassah Pediatrics. They had connections and property in London. So when I finished my BA, I had decided to go and learn how to make instruments in London. We had a place we could stay, and I found there was a college where I could learn, instead of making harpsichords, I could learn to build Renaissance instruments.
oh.
So I went to the college. All of these things, I was given scholarships. I had British citizenship. And for 3 years, I was at this college making lutes and a whole range of different interesting plucked instruments called vihuelas and bandoras and dorfarians. Most people have never heard of them. And I was also there right at the beginning of the renaissance of early music. It was coming back in a big way, and they needed instruments to play that music. So I learned just through making. It was a really hands-on 3 years at a college. I learned to build these Renaissance instruments. I was also able to just walk down the road to some of the best concerts of early music at the time. And before that, when I was still in Jerusalem, I'd also had access to my cousin who had brought Trungpa Rinpoche from Bhutan on a train to Scotland. And he taught me how to meditate. He taught me karate. And then when I came to London, I met his teacher. So I was exposed to a tremendous set of opportunities that were laid at my lap. Everything was always magic as I look back. And it just continued and continued. I ended up teaching karate at my college. I ended up, connecting with some of the greatest performers of early music, Emmett Kirkby, Anthony Rooley. I ended up being at the right time at the right place. And even when I finally moved to making harps, I was there at the forefront of the harp therapy movement. And I started making harps for harp therapy, for hospice work and for hospital work. And I interviewed some of the founders of those programs. I was providing instruments, and I wrote articles about them and about music therapy and art therapy, and harp therapy. Again, I was at the right place at the right time. And by that time, I was here in the States.
Nice. And so when you started going down your metaphysical path,
Yes.
was your wife also metaphysical, or did she learn it as you were learning it?
We were both part of the group that we met this man, Marshall Lever, in London. Again, all magic. By chance, somebody had booked us a session with him. He was a full trance medium, and he channeled old Chinese. A man called Chung Fu. His previous life had been as a disciple of Chuang Tzu, and he provided me with the most incredible journeys into the forest with the old sage, the young emperor, just incredible stories. But he taught about crystals, he taught about diet, he taught about cataclysmic cycles, numerology, all of the subjects that later became foundations of the New Age. He was teaching back in the 70s in London when we were there. And eventually we were invited to move to the States and become part of his organization, and continue to study with him until he left. He left the guide. And then many, many years later, I met a woman who was talking about crystals and ascension. Somebody told me, Chung Fu is going to be doing an interview. And it was a woman called Sally Pullinger from Glastonbury. And he's the one who told me all about Shungite on that show. And later I went to visit her. I had an opportunity to go to Amsterdam and teach and channel. And I went to visit Sally and actually have a reconnection with old Chinese in kind of a whole new body, completely different trance channel. He gave me a session, and I was just, so blown away by the power and the connection. And there's a certain level of, he called inner truth was the number, I think it was hexagram 33. That was his reference, was the whole idea of inner truth. And so he was another one of my inspirations that had carried with me from all the way back from when I met him first in London through a different channel. Yeah.
That's fascinating, and what a great way to start. And like you said, I mean, it just fell in your lap. Here's the important thing: when it did, you didn't push it away. You embraced what was in front of you, these opportunities, and moved forward. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes, I followed my passion. Everything, like the instruments, came out of the passion for the music, the creativity I had, and at this parallel and a little later, when I was living here in the States, up in New Mexico in Questa, and by that time I had learned to build harps, and essentially transferred my focus to just harps and also instruments for the Waldorf schools. So, that's also where my wife came in at the time. She was wanting to be a Rudolf Steiner Waldorf teacher. And so we made these little lyres for the Waldorf schools, and we created instruments for the family, little meditation instruments, as well as folk harps. And we had a little small mom and pop business, making harps and selling instruments and cassettes at the time for families to make music together.
And were you channeling at the same time as you were making the instruments, or did that come later on?
The channeling came later. The channeling began in a way when I started my relationship with Flo Magdalena, author of I Remember Union. And she met a woman called Joy Melchizedek, who was also channeling a group or beings called the Ones with No Names that help us when we come into this planet. They kind of are our they're our people we consult with as to what we're going to do when we come down here, what agreements, what will be our mission, our purpose, and when we go back. And so they have been guiding many of her passions, including her book, I Remember Union, about Mary Magdalene, one of the first books. And in that book, it starts where the Christ and the Magdalene and Judas are all consulting with the Ones with No Names in what they call the swing between worlds. A lot of this is also reflected in the book, The Path of the Spiritual Warrior, that I recently have finished. And so there's mention of the Ones with No Names, the swing between worlds, consulting with the guides before you come, as to what your mission will be. And so I had many readings with her, and that would help me through some of my darkest times. I lost a daughter when she was 9 in a car accident. And so, then we separated, my wife and I. So a lot of my evolution became taking hikes in nature. I lived in the most beautiful area, and I would listen on my little Walkman to the readings I got from her, and they would give me strength. And then this angel called John Henry began to appear through her and gave some readings to us, and he kind of became my buddy, because every day after I would sit and meditate, I would start writing. I would just automatically, write in my journal. It would just come, and it was almost always him bringing forth a message. And he's the one who brought the work of the HeartThread through. After a while, he traveled through all the dimensions looking for the answers to how he can help people to deal with suffering, to have an easier life. And all of the guides and angels and the holy beings told him the heart is the key. And so he created this system, this transformational modality we call HeartThread. And when I learned it from her, I started using it and giving little workshops and teaching it. And then at a certain point, I became a trainer. And part of the training is that you actually give a transmission from him as to how he will work with the facilitators. And so, I actually was part of the training that I was giving was that I would actually channel a message for the person. And that was kind of my first public channeling, just about maybe 5-6 years ago. And it came through flawlessly. And I became more and more something that I absolutely loved doing. And today, what's become more real for me is that I don't channel entities anymore. I don't channel I mean, I can, and I channeled John Henry this weekend, but usually it's we. It's almost like I'm part of a team of
Yes.
beings that are the one that's become the one voice. It's
It
collaboration.
Yes, it's like how Abraham talks to Esther Hicks. Then they say, you can call me Abraham, but it's a collective of
Yes,
beings sharing the information.
yes,
So let's talk about HeartThreads a little bit.
yes.
HeartThreads is this you're very passionate about this modality. And do you teach this? Let's talk about what it does for people and why you touched on it a little bit, but I'd love a little bit more depth about HeartThreads.
So in a normal session, in-person session, you sit behind the person with your hands on their back or their shoulders, neck and shoulders. You get permission, of course. And you start receiving messages through, we call them message points on the back. Your hands, first of all, you notice how their alignment. You notice how they hold themselves. You get a sense of them. And then when you place your hands, you start to actually get a feeling for what's out of alignment. You start to get a feeling of messages that the cells of the person are feeding you, me as a practitioner. And then I ask them to repeat those words. The words are coming from the cells. They're coming from the old patterning. When we're children, we're like sponges. We absorb all the BS. We absorb
Yes.
all the things that they want us to know, how to be, how to see ourselves. So most of us are programmed, patterned, and conditioned to false belief of ourselves, essentially, and a false sense of who we are, of how to be in the world, of what our truth is. And all these patterns are like layers that are added to the traumas that inhabit ourselves. And so when we receive the messages are countering those old patterns. They're actually allowing those patterns to leave the body and open up space for more light to come in.
Mhm.
And so when you say, I am beautiful, you're going against an old program that says you're not beautiful. I am worthy, or I no longer subscribe to the view that whatever, whatever. And so the words will come different for each individual. They come from the message points in the body. And at the same time, if you're not in person, you can also tune into the field of the heart, which is a quantum field. So you can be in two places at once. You can be in another dimension, another time frame. And so we're able to tune in to what's needed. And when the person verbalizes it, they're taking it from behind their unconscious and they're bringing it to a conscious awareness. So it no longer has the same power. And a person's whole belief system can shift just in that one moment.
Wow.
When they get, sometimes somebody will have pain, and you actually, I could tune in and I can feel the tension in the shoulders and relax. You take a breath, you melt, and all of a sudden the person's feeling, oh, my pain's gone. It's that immediate, that magical, and that compelling. And it's all done because the heart field is the most powerful energy on the planet.
Yes.
And so the more you're able, we do it, we just put our right hand on our heart, our left hand on our right, we take a breath, and you can feel the stillness comes in, replaces all the voices, all the BS, all the tension goes. And so focusing on the breath and actually shifting the location from the mind to the heart is what allows that to come through in such a powerful and simple way. It's magic.
It sounds like magic. And in addition, this is HeartThreads is amazing. It sounds amazing. I think I might have to try that. But let's talk about the Path of the Spiritual Warrior, which book is going to be coming out within about a month, 6 weeks. Ray, you're tweaking it from what you said, right?
Yeah, I've been refining it,
Mm.
so that it would be more reader friendly, and the sentences wouldn't be so, because when you channel sometimes it's like stream of consciousness. So I made it more succinct and made sure that what they were saying was clear to the reader.
I like that. And so, where are you going to be launching the book when you launch? Or better yet, I have an idea. Why
Yes.
don't we tell them about your website, which is Raphael Weisman, WEIS1SMAN.com, where Raphael has a mailing list where you could subscribe to the mailing list so you can be made aware of when this book is going to be launched. And then you will find all the locations you'll be able to find this book at.
Yes. It'll be also on, one of the pages of the website, obviously, will be under books. There's a lot of books. I read a lot. I'm fascinated by the whole history of our planet and our cosmos. And so every time I read a fascinating book, because they come to me, as soon as I finish one, another one will pop up, will fill in some of the puzzle pieces. So I have one page on my website that's just book covers of all the books I've researched. But there will be a special page for the Path of the Spiritual Warrior.
Oh, exciting, very exciting to have that happen. The other thing you've got going on is you channel the guides each alternate Tuesday evening in Santa Fe, and you do it also on Zoom, so people can sign up for the Zoom.
Yes, this coming Tuesday, I didn't do it this last one because of all the traveling, but I should be in Hancock, New Hampshire, and I'll be Eastern time, and I'll only be doing it on Zoom because I won't be in Santa Fe, but I will be doing it. I haven't determined exactly the time to make sure that it works for people in New Mexico, but probably I'm thinking around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the Zoom link is on my website, and I send out a newsletter like I did about this show maybe once a week. And often the recording of the previous session with the angels is going to be on my YouTube channel.
Nice.
And I put a link to that in my newsletter. So if you miss one, you can get to hear it.
And we're going to put the link to Raphael's website as well as the other links that we have for Raphael on our blog that's attached to this show. So you are able to know where to find everything. So
Yeah.
Laura Clayton has said, wonderful to learn about this, about you, Raphael. Would you kindly share how you began connecting with your spiritual guides?
Oh, Laura's, it will be at Laura's home from which I Zoom next Tuesday. Hi, Laura. What happened is that, I've always, that when I do the HeartThread work, as I was saying, I meditate every morning. I sit there with my cup of coffee and I go into a space where I connect heaven and earth. I create a column of light. I go down into Mother Earth. I go up to Father Sky. I pour golden light, comes through my crown, stillness, creating that column. And then I open it up to a sphere of golden light that keeps me protected. And I just tune into the heart space. And I also open myself to receive more and more and more light, which I then send out. And I send it out to my healing list. And essentially, I go into the zone. I sit there in the stillness and I feel the energy of guidance around me. When I'm done with that, I sit with my journal and I wait for words to come. And usually 2 or 3 words pop in and I start writing. And then the writing just unfolds in a beautiful manner. Mostly it's encouraging me about me and my past and, stop worrying, all the things and the confirmations that my angels or whoever it is give me. And so as I've done that for like probably 10 years worth of journals, if not more, all sitting in boxes waiting to be burned, I've become accustomed to receiving messages that were mostly, for me personally. And then when I trained to become a HeartThread practitioner and trainer, it was part of the job of the trainer to bring through a transmission from John Henry, the angel that gave us the HeartThread. And then when I did that for the very first time, that morning, in the writing, I was reassured that I'll come through and I'll say the right things and I'll be able to channel a message for that trainee. And that's what happened. It was exactly the perfect message for that person as to how John Henry would work with them when they do their practice, because it's different for everyone. Everyone has their specialty. Some people like to, do it when they're doing the side. You can adapt it to almost any other practice you have. You can incorporate the HeartThread process. So I started becoming a channel for that purpose. And then more and more, I would start to get messages, and I would eventually answer when people would ask me a question. The answer would come from the guides. I would just automatically have the words that come through me until it's become almost like I would almost feel like when I channeled the book, when I did the course, it was 12 voices. I was actually asked to receive, from the ones with no names, I was asked to receive 12 voices, one each morning in my writing. They gave me a message and they became that voice. And then when I'd had the 12, they wanted me to teach a weekly program where I would bring through a message from each of those angels or guides or beings. And there were people like Joan of Arc. There were people like Pan, Seshat, Thoth, the Druid. I mean, they came from all sorts of walks of life. Ashtara, which actually happens to be my female aspect. It was fascinating who would show up to be that voice for that, and so I brought through messages from each of the voices, and then I would answer questions that the attendees would ask. And so each chapter of the book became a channeled message and then questions and answers from the guides. Now, when let's say I was talking as Pan, I started every once in a while, it was almost always we. They didn't say I often. I had to it's almost like I was faking it, pretending to be that being, and have to remind myself, when I was saying we, to come back, I Pan, And so it became more and more. And then when I finished that series of 12, I was asked to receive another 12. And I was told that those 12 would meet with the other 12 and eventually multiply to become the 144, which would all start amalgamating into the one voice. And so today it feels like what comes through me is the one voice. I don't want to call it the voice of God or goddess because it sounds, very I don't know what the word, but in some ways it is. It's the voice of some energy, a higher power that's, you could call it spirit, but that's what comes through now.
But don't you feel that these beings are receiving the information from a being higher than them. Like we can call it God, Elohim, whatever way you want to call it. But it's still, it siphons down. So, for example, as a healer, my high self connects with my client's high self, and that high self guides my sessions.
Yes.
And so, what I'm suggesting is that there's a higher being that the ones with no names receive their information from and share it as well. Would you consider that to be an accurate possibility?
Yes, but I don't see it kind of in hierarchical terms. It's almost as if we're all a team. We're all different facets of that one diamond, and the voice of the diamond comes to me or through me, and all my job is to just be empty, so that whatever needs to be said. I just recently read a book called Entering the Circle by a woman from Russia, from Siberia, Olga. I don't remember exactly the last name. She was a psychiatrist who became aware of herself as one of the ancient shamans from the Siberia. And this is from an area that goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, almost to the cradle of civilization.
Wow.
And the teaching that she received was about the heart self. And I love that term, because we're dealing with the heart. And so instead of higher self now, I'm actually thinking more, it comes through the heart self, because when we go into the heart, we're tuning into that quantum field that is connected to all that is. Everything that exists is the one. It's the oneness. And so my particular vocal cords are I call it the hollow reed, the hollow flute that makes the music of God. And so me being empty allows the words to come through, and it's always appropriate exactly to what the person needs to hear. And usually it comes from the highest potential. That's why the idea of being a spiritual warrior is so important, because when you are impeccable, when you only follow truth, when you examine every single word, when you take that breath in the midst of your panic attack, when you take that moment to still yourself, you're tuning into that heart self, to that power, and you're able then to transcend the illusion of the reality of what's going on, because we create our reality. When we create our reality from positivity, from love, from our passion, from truth. So it's like HeartThread. You're eliminating all the negative chatter that we live that creates our reality. And you're creating a brand new reality for yourself. And you're doing it through the heart self. That makes sense?
It does make sense. It's powerful. It just sounds so powerful. Debbie, she has 3 statements. Well, question. I've asked my spirit guides for signs. I have seen 19 eagles in the last 21 days. What do you think that means? And she's also trying to manifest wealth and abundance. Those were her statements. So do you have any insight into the 19 eagles in 21 days?
Today's the 19th, is it not?
Today is the 19th, yes.
It's Flo's birthday, by the way. Flo Magdalena, the one I told you about.
Happy birthday, Flo.
And the eagle is a powerful messenger from spirit saying today's the day. Tune in to your own higher self and stop trying. Don't try to do anything. Allow yourself to be who you are without any judgments whatsoever. Love yourself just the way you are. Today is a brand new day. Today is the day you manifest whatever you wish to achieve, whatever you wish to manifest through your own inner power, your own ability to tune into your own guidance. And you do it through the breath, through stilling your mind, and through going into your heart, and ask your angels and your guides to give you whatever it is you want, but you have to believe that you'll receive it. You have to feel it. Greg Braden wrote that book about the magic of prayer, right?
Yes.
I don't remember the name right now, but he's a friend of mine, and exactly, you have to feel it, you have to say it, believe it, because your beliefs create. If you're thinking it, it's not going to work.
Right.
You have to know it. The knowing transcends the thinking and the believing.
And the asking is so highly important
Yes,
because they don't have the free will to just intervene. You have to ask for it. And
totally.
then they will, I like to say, conspire on your behalf.
Absolutely. And I often refer to Goethe. Goethe wrote a little blurb about commitment. If you're not familiar with it, that's also in the book, and I believe it's on my website somewhere. When you make that commitment and you take that first step, the whole universe conspires to bring forward events and people that you could never have imagined would have showed up. And it comes from you making the commitment.
I love that. It's so true. I need to take a break and move into charity shout out. So, as everyone knows who listens to the show, every show I do, we honor the charities of our guests so that we can bring spotlight and attention to these charities so they can receive whatever it is that resonates with them. And you have two. One is called healingthescars.org and the other is soulsupportsystem.org. Let's talk about the two of them and bring attention to so people can donate and support your efforts.
So soulsupportsystems.org is the foundation, the organization that Flo created for her work. She does other work. She's written other books. And it was through Soul Support Systems that John Henry brought forward the work of the HeartThread work. And so supporting Soul Support Systems is also going to support taking this work out into the world, taking it taking it to veterans, taking it to people who've had abuse. Sorry, I have a little cramp.
Did you need to stand up or do something to ease it out?
I'll just breathe, right?
Okay. Breathing is good.
Yeah.
Breathing is very helpful.
So, yes. Sorry, what did you ask?
Soul support. We're talking about the soul support
Yeah,
system,
okay.
and we're talking about
Soul Support Systems is the foundation for the work of the HeartThread work. And so it's also supporting the work of getting HeartThread into the world. And in fact, Healing the Scars is only a New Mexico nonprofit at the moment, but part of its mission is to take this work around the world to create centers where veterans and people who have suffered from abuse and trauma and war, especially, like victims of war. So even refugees, anybody who's been traumatized, PTSD, all of the above, would get the kind of help they need, whether or not they can find the finances for that. So that vision is very much of a collaborative effort together with Soul Support Systems. It does not yet have a funding link, but Soul Support Systems does. You can go to the website and there is a donate page. You can also read more about the HeartThread work. You can learn how you might become a trainer, or a practitioner. So Soul Support Systems is really the one that you could support. If you want a second supportable nonprofit, I would say it's the work of a man called Herman Rednick, earthjourney.org. It's one of my teachers from way back. And in fact, the cover of the book uses a painting by Herman Rednick. He was a mystic, and he taught the path of love and the path of love and service. So he was one of my foundational teachers in the area of El Rito, northern New Mexico, where my harp shop still exists. And he had a very powerful practice that's still ongoing, even though he's passed away many years ago.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. And there's one other thing I know we wanted to talk about, which I forgot to talk about. Two things, actually, when we were talking about all the wonderful things you're doing with the spiritual warrior, the path of the spiritual warrior, and your Tuesday night thing. You also are a supplier for Shungite
Yes,
and nanosoma.
nanosoma. This is nanosoma. Whoops.
Yes.
It is a powerful remedy for anything that assaults the body. Viruses, bacteria, man-made products, and it helps to boost the immune system. It works on, it like does triage on what's going on for your body, and addresses whatever it is, the most important thing first. It's a spray. You spray it under your tongue. And again, under my healing products button on my website, you can read more about it. You can read also how to get a 10% discount to try it out. There's a long list of testimonials. We don't say anything about healing anything. It just does the work to help your immune system to do what your body needs to do to heal itself. The other thing that I'm passionate about is Shungite. I make this custom jewelry. This is a piece of Shungite. It's called Elite. It's the most pure form of Shungite. The little beads are actually, and these bracelets and things are, these are made of the molecule of carbon that is inherent in this in the Shungite. Is called a fullerene. It has the ability to take a negative spin and reverse it into a positive. And so it can protect you from electromagnetic frequencies and radiation. You can stick it on your laptop, on your phone. You can wear it. You could put spheres of it, pyramids made of it, next to your computer, on your desk, in your home, to keep yourself safe. It doesn't work completely with 5G, but it works with most of the others. And I have some pieces. This is a fairly large piece of it.
Oh, wow. Yes.
It's amazingly light, but it's made of something called C60. It's a particular molecule of carbon that comes from outer space. It landed on Earth in Karelia, Russia, 50-something billion years ago. So it's a gift for our time. The water you make, it purifies water. It's antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory. It has a whole long list of things. It helps to ground you. It helps to open your root chakra and realign your chakra. It's a gift from Mother Earth and Father Sky. And as I said, my old Chinese guide was the one who originally brought it to my attention. And so I now import it from Russia and I sell it on my website. Again, there's a page on my website for Shungite under healing products. And you can read more about it. I consult people who are a lot of people are having a hard time with the technologies today. And so it's one of the things I can do to help, which is what all my life is about.
And you're of service. You live the path of service, which is so important for us all.
Yes, I'm also a double Virgo.
Just to bring some astrology into it.
That's service, right?
It is of service, yes. Yeah. Okay, Raphael, we're close to winding up the hour, believe it or not. What have we not spoken about that you want to share with everybody? What have I not touched on?
Yes, nature.
Okay,
Nature,
let's talk nature.
water. We did talk about water a little. I also, I have been blessed to have been taught and worked with various grandmothers and other leaders, native leaders who have worked with blessing water. Water is probably the most important energy on the planet because we are water. Water is what transmits frequencies. It's what communicates between humans and all of life. And so if we have a specific respect for water, if we do ceremony to bless water, if you take a glass of water and before you drink it, you bless it somehow, you hold it to the light, you put your light into it, you're going to change the molecular structure of the water. So water is one of the most important aspects of life. And whatever you can do to show your respect and honoring for water, never pollute the water. Always drink as much clean, healthy water, structured water as you can. That's why Shungite actually purifies water. That's why I throw it in all of my water containers. And the other thing is that when you go in nature and you get away from all the frequencies of the Wi-Fi and the technology, and you just go and sit and hug a tree, or you sit beneath a tree, you put your feet in the water, you sit there and wait for the birds and the creatures to come, and you start to develop a connection with nature. You're connecting with all that is, the living spirit that is in all life. And that is one of the most important things to do these days. Simplify. Chop wood, carry water. It helps to be humble too, to
Yes.
recognize that you're part of everything, and that the more you can be simple, the more you can be in stillness, in silence, the more you can take a breath. Taking a breath is the most powerful practice there is. And I'll say that again. Taking a breath is the most powerful practice there is. For every situation, it's the first step. So the path of the spiritual warrior, the foundation, are these things we've been saying. Take a breath, live a simple life, embrace stillness, silence, nature, watch your thoughts, watch your belief systems, change your belief systems. All of these things, but nature is our teacher, and it will help to counter the influence of all of the control energies on the planet, because they cannot control life. Once you create of a person, a real human being, an object, you can control them. You can try to control them. But something that is imbued with the living spirit, that has willpower, that has the ability to think and feel and be in the heart, cannot be controlled. And that's why I encourage you to be in nature, to drink healthy water, and to watch every single thought, every word that comes out of your mouth, and change it like Shungite does. When it's negative, turn it around, make it positive.
Yes.
That's probably encapsulated in everything.
I think I agree so much with everything that you've said about yes with the water and being impeccable with your words and your thoughts and your deeds, because there's so much darkness that's been seeming to grow over the world in the last, well, it's been going on for a long time, but it's like a new wave is coming over. So if we can change our energy, our thoughts, the way we speak and how we speak, and be more benevolent to our fellow beings, whether they're two-legged, four-legged, feathered, or not, then we will just start shifting the energy.
Absolutely. Yes.
Raphael, thank you so much for being on the show. You have been, well, the information is phenomenal. Inspiration is huge. And I look forward to inviting you back on again I know that we're going to be talking about another book that you're coming out with in the future, but we'll save that as a teaser. So, to bring you back. But I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. I want to thank Bridget for everything you do. You're my right hand, my left hand. Don't know what I would do without you. Thank you for all you do for me, for the show. I want to thank you, the listening audience, for taking time out of your day, out of your life, for being a part of this show, because I do this with you in mind. And it is my absolute pleasure and my love for wanting to show you different modalities and people who you may not otherwise be able to find if we didn't have this beautiful invention called the internet. So thank you for taking that time. I want to remind you that next week's guest is Master Zhigang Shah. He's going to be back again talking about his latest book. And please tune into that. I invite you to tune in. If you like the show, if you love the show, subscribe, like it, so that you don't miss one exciting episode of what's coming down in future shows. Also, as I leave you, as always, I send you love, blessings, and gratitude. I am so grateful that you're in my life in whatever capacity you're in it, because not only are you my student, you are my teacher. And not only am I your teacher, I'm your student. I'm so grateful for that. And before I leave you, once again, I'm going to send you love. I love you. So if you haven't heard it today, you now have. And if you have heard it, you've just had another layer of love sent to you. So until next week, stay well, stay joyful and grateful, and take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raphael. Take care. Bye-bye.